Lesson 3.3, Measures of Central Tendency and Dispersion from Grouped Data. There are 3 objectives: approximate the mean, compute the weighted mean, and the standard deviation for group data. What are the formulas for approximating the population mean and sample mean from a frequency distribution, and what calculator command would you use? Well, frequency distribution, that's going to be when we have classes. So before we just had numbers that we worked with. Now what if we actually had classes? This is how you would compute the mean. For population, mu is going to equal the summation of x sub I times f sub I over the summation of f sub I. This is for population. For a sample, we have x bar equaling, and then the same formula. Fi is the frequency of the ith class, and xi is the midpoint of the ith class. And for calculator command, we're going to use number 2. Pull out your calculator sheet. You can see this reference to 3.3, and this is to find the mean standard deviation for class midpoints and frequencies. And then we want to know the formulas for population standard deviation and sample standard deviation. And again, we'd use number 2 for the calculator. So for population, it is sigma equaling square root of summation x sub I minus mu squared times f sub I all over the summation of f sub I. That's for your population. For your sample, square root of xi minus x bar squared times fi all divided by the sum of f sub I. This is for a sample. The frequency distribution below represents the 5-year rate of return of a random sample of 40 large blend mutual funds. Approximate the mean and standard deviation 5-year rate of return. Okay, now you can see that this is going to be different than we have been working with to find the mean and standard deviation. You can notice we have classes. So what we're going to do this on our calculator. So 2A, input class midpoints into list 1. We do not have the midpoints, so we need to calculate them. Again, to calculate the midpoints, you're going to add the 2 lower classes and divide by 2. So 8 plus 9 divided by 2 is 8.5. So that's this midpoint, because 8.5 is between these 2 numbers. Then 9 plus 10 divided by 2, 9.5. And then you can see a pattern that it is increasing by 1, so 10.5. 11.5, and so on. So let's try and put this in our calculator. So the first part A was to put this midpoint in list 1. So I'm going to clear the list. Okay, the next step is to include the frequencies in list 2. So I'm going to arrow over to get to list 2, and now we're going to put in the frequencies. Then go to Stat, Calc, 1var stats. Okay, now if you had one of the 2 calculator additions that list at the very top of this calculator sheet, there's going to be these 2 words, so list, and you're going to type list 1, and then frequency list, you're going to type in L2, and then hit calculate and enter. So now this addition, you're going to do second L1, comma, second L2. Hit enter. So if you're going to use the calculator I have on the screen, make sure you write down directions so when you have to do this on a test or a quiz, you know how to do it. So the question was to find the mean and standard deviation. So the mean is 13.1. And then this was a sample, so we're going to use S of x, so 2.18 was our standard deviation.